Hi friends and fellow bibliophiles, it's Kat of Kat's Novel Adventures. In today's video, I'm sharing what I read in January. January was a really unusual reading month for me. I just decided to take a break, and it wasn't because I was in a reading slump per se. It's just that I had really hit it hard reading tons of books between October and December of 2022 that I decided, don't make a January TBR. Let's just see what happens and read strictly for book clubs that I participate in, start my buddy read with my sister, and also start some books that I had for reading goals for 2023. I also wanted to use January to organize my first readathon on my channel called Folklore February, where we would be reading folktales, fairy tales, and fables. I started 6 books in the month of January, but only finished 1. And that's the one I'm going to talk about after I go through everything that I've started, because either I'm still reading it or I ended up finishing it in February. But I still want to share with you the books that I have started since the beginning of the year. So the first book that I started right at the beginning of the year is Choose Joy. It's 3-minute devotions for women. This is a book that's on my 23 for 2023 book list that I want to get to for this year. It will be a book that I will read throughout the entire year because it's really small passages and just meant to bring a little joy into your life. My sister and I had a great time buddy reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle in 2022 that we decided to buddy read another book. So we chose another personal development book called The Subtle Art of Not Caring by Mark Manson. We actually started this book on January 8th and we're still currently reading it. We have a couple more chapters to go and then we will be finished sometime in March. As most of you know, I am participating in Laura Vandekam's Tranquility by Tuesday challenge that she is hosting on her website. At the same time, I am reading her book, Tranquility by Tuesday, which is a personal development book that is teaching some really great time management strategies. And I'm currently participating in the challenge, reading the book, and should be finishing both of them up sometime in March. I participate in the Cozy Cottage Book Club, and for the month of January, they chose Stardust by Neil Gaiman. And it is actually an adult fairy tale book. I did not get to finish it in January. I was about halfway through when we had the meeting for the Cozy Cottage Book Club, and I ended up finishing it in February. So I will actually talk more about this book when I do my February wrap up. Another project that I'm doing this year is my Year of Christie. And I decided to kick off my Year of Christie by starting the book Agatha Christie, An Elusive Woman by Lucy Worsley. I wanted to learn more about Agatha Christie before diving into more of her mysteries for the year. I have a little ways to go, so I probably will be reading this book a lot longer than I anticipated, and I will start reading some of her mysteries before I even finish the biography. Okay, the moment you've been waiting for, the one book, I shouldn't hold up 2 fingers, the one book that I finished in the month of January, and that was No Exit by Taylor Adams. This is my introduction to Taylor Adams, and oh boy, I could not have been more pleased to start off my reading adventures with Taylor Adams with this book because it was awesome. I want to talk about not only the storyline, but also my thoughts on this book. First of all, it is a story about Darby Thorne. She's a college student and she has a very complicated relationship with her mother. The last time she and her mother were together, I believe it was for Thanksgiving, they had some words that were not very kind to one another, and Darby went back to school. She goes to school in Colorado. And she finds out not long after from her sister that her mother is in the hospital. She's very ill and is going to die. So Darby reluctantly packs up her little Honda and decides that she's going to drive from Colorado to Utah, where she's originally from, and that's where her mother's in the hospital. So Darby is driving along and is in the midst of a terrible snowstorm and decides that she needs to pull over. It's just not safe for her to continue driving on. So she pulls over into a rest area that's pretty isolated. It's a few miles off of the highway. She figures she'll just wait it out. Hopefully in the morning, some snowplows will come along, they'll clear the roads, and then she can be back on the road and in Utah in no time to be with her mom. Well, she's there all right, and she's not the only one. When she parked outside the rest area, she noticed that there were some other vehicles in the parking lot, so she wasn't very surprised when she walked into the rest area and saw a couple of people in there. There were actually 3 people in there. And she asked the normal questions. Is there any Wi-Fi service? What about coffee? Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, she discovers that the Wi-Fi is not great and there's possibly a signal outside near the statue. So she decides to attempt to do that because she would like to try to get in touch with her sister and just send a text and say, hey, I'm on my way, but I had to stop. The weather's really terrible. When she's walking back to the rest area, that's when she discovers something in a van next to her own vehicle. And what she sees horrifies her, and she has to make a decision at that moment. Do I intervene and get involved in something that really isn't my business, or is it my business if I'm going to be a good citizen and I'm going to try and do something about it? So she goes back into the rest area and just thinks about what her next step is going to be. Well, lo and behold, another person enters the rest area, and she's not really sure where this guy has come from. Was he out there watching her? Is he the one that happens to own the van? There's a lot of questions. And this is where the story ramps up, because Darby knows that one of the 4 people that she's sharing this rest area with is doing something that they should not be doing, and it's possible that if she does get involved, that she's not only going to be fighting for her own life, but she's also going to be trying to save someone else's. I'm not saying anything else about the storyline itself because I don't want to give away any spoilers. I do want to just share some of my thoughts about the book. I thought it was really well written. The characters are well developed. I really enjoyed watching Darby's character really change throughout the story from beginning to end. In the beginning, wasn't really the most likable character to me, but as time went on, I was really rooting for her. And I have to say that the setting was perfect as far as the isolation, caused by the snow, the obstacles that being in a snowstorm presents to the characters. And it's not just about Darby not being able to drive away from the rest stop. She's also pretty much can't get away by foot either very well, because this is extreme conditions as far as weather is concerned. The setting itself caused a lot of desperation in the situation as well. And the content itself was chilling, so it's almost like it was perfect that you were being chilled to the bone at the same time. I could almost envision how it must have felt to be in that situation. It's really intense, very suspenseful. I was constantly thinking about, what was going to happen next. I felt like my characters were in peril, and I just wanted to help them if I could have jumped into the book itself and helped them. But there's so many twists and turns in the story. Right when you think everything's gonna be okay, Taylor Adams throws you that curveball and you're back at square one and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't take much more of this. Now, I will say that there are some brutal moments in this book. Some of them are pretty explicit and some of them are implied. There are moments of violence where situations are described that was kind of hard to read. I just think about myself being put in that position, like I just think it would be horrific and terrible to have to deal with that. So if you're not one that likes a lot of violence and you're a little squeamish, talking about blood, this might not be the book for you. As far as the implied brutality, I think Taylor Adams does a really good job of not really going into a lot of details. It's mentioned, it's implied, and I'm glad about that because there is some content that I have a hard time reading about. So I was glad that was kept at bay. I can kind of deal with the violence part of it. I don't like it, but I mean, I can kind of deal with it. It seemed realistic for what was happening. But I would say the other part, I was glad that he implied it only. With all that being said, I'm really excited that my book club chose No Exit by Taylor Adams. It was a fantastic book, perfect read to start off 2023, and wonderful introduction to Taylor Adams. I look forward to reading more of his work in the future. This was definitely a 5-star read for me. Have you read No Exit by Taylor Adams? If you have, what did you think about it? Thanks everyone for watching. I really appreciate when you stop by. In the meantime, stay amazing and be adventurous.